Being in that little health and safety protocol kind of mucked it up for me from having
back to like 100% now, right?
Yeah, still a lot of naps though.
Yeah.
But who says no to naps, right? I mean, come on.
Apparently, my mother hates naps. Apparently, because like I was telling you, she woke me right up about 8 minutes after I fell asleep. I did not get to take advantage of that break.
Yep.
St. Jude is fighting for one.
All right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal EMAC coming to you with one. T McBee doing his second show of the day as we get ready for a little Christmas Day Eve night, live before lock here. We've got NFL. We've got a couple late scratches here, so we'll get into that shortly. We've got basketball that tips off in 29 minutes for the next game. I'll take a peek over there and see what's going on. And I believe that other game just got over. Golden State's standing by to beat Phoenix. Oh, come on, Draymond Green. I need 2 more rebounds to get my prop. Killing me here. Killing me. Terry, what's going on? You know, these prop cards where you put together 3, 4, or 5, sometimes it's tricky to get them all. One will just throw you off. Those hurt right there. Right.
You're telling me you took the wrong side of the free LeBron James square is what you're telling me?
No, I got that. I got the Julius Randle one, but you know, it's those other ones that are a little tricky.
Yeah, that can be a little painful. Looks like I'm just checking my NBA here, and I only threw in one lineup today, but looks like Otto Porter came back around and turned a clunker of a first half into an okay performance at 47% ownership on FanDuel. We got a casher at least. We'll see if we get into decent territory.
All right, popping up chat here. We'll give everybody just a minute to join up. So when is kickoff tonight? I've lost track of that. Is it 8:20 or is it 8:15? Let me look that up real quick as we're waiting for people to collect here.
Our schedule for the show was 8:15. I'm not sure
It is 8:15.
I had that happen. The kickoff was at 8:15, but the lock was at 8:20 last week, and that was a fun little bonus when I was hosting the show with Nick last week.
Yeah, we're at 8:15, so no worries there. I wanted to double check that, just make sure that that was not going to be an issue. Green Bay just won 24-22 here against Cleveland. The Nick Chubb rushing yards did not do me well. It's all right. It's all right. We got the late slate here. We got 2 games for NBA. Those are posted for our projections. We also have the Showdown slate, and then we got a full day of NFL tomorrow. I want to remind you guys that tonight it ends. It is our NBA Express Weekly Pass. It ends tonight. It's $1 through tonight with the promo code Frosty, but after tonight, it melts. It goes away. So you definitely want to check that out if you are not a member. That also gets you access to a week of Discord. Always fun to go in there and chat with other like-minded gamers. The big things that we have tonight, there is no Rondale Moore and James Conner are the 2 people that are out for Arizona, and Zach Pascal is out for the Colts. That was announced a couple hours ago. Oh, let's see. The Colts are missing 3 of their starting offensive linemen. We just have holes everywhere here, Terry. Hopefully is a high-scoring game. It'll make it be a little more fun, a little interesting. What is your initial observation here at the high level? And then we'll make some lineups and we'll have some fun here. We'll talk a little No House Advantage as well. They are the sponsor of the show today.
I think probably out of the gate, I should apologize to everybody out there because I referred to this game as relatively stable and something that we kind of knew where the absences were going to be. And lo and behold, in the subsequent couple of hours, this slate completely changed because we got those scratches in. So yeah, losing a couple key players on the Arizona side of the ball, losing a prime receiver on the Indy side of the ball. I think both teams still have weapons. They still obviously have places we can look for talent. It creates a weird price paradigm on the slate now where we're going to be able to get a lot more of certain players because of the cheaper options at running back and some of the receivers that'll be elevated by virtue of having some of their teammates out. So gives the slate a different shape, and it'll be a little bit interesting, and we'll be able to talk into some of these plays that maybe we weren't quite as focused on the main slate
for today.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's jump on in here. We'll do a little contest building over on Yahoo. Let me get up a single game contest there. Make sure I get to that. What do they have here? Oh, they have a $15 you match, or you play it, we match. I'll enter that one. Let's have some fun here on Yahoo. Terry, I think we have some decision points here. So I did not do a Yahoo article today, but I will be did do one for DraftKings and FanDuel. That is the featured article on the main page. Terry also has his groups article out there for this game. There are 3 other free articles covering this game on the Awesemo.com homepage, so you guys will want to check those out. At the top, the question really becomes Jonathan Taylor, Kyler Murray. They're both they're at 39 and 38 respectively, or Carson Wentz is our next guy. I think we got to go with Murray here, but I'm not sure because now we don't have James Conner. That could throw a little boost to Chase Edmonds, or it could turn things a little closer towards Kyler Murray's way. How would you feel about between those 2? Where would you like us to start?
I think to me, it's going to, for the Arizona side of the ball, it's probably going to unleash that passing game a little bit more. Taking Conner out of there. I think, Edmonds is a capable back, but I think we saw the difference that it made in terms of their ground game once Conner kind of took that role a little bit more. So taking him out, I think we were kind of leaning toward this being a fairly pass heavy look for Arizona and an opportunity for them. So I kind of think that still holds and maybe gets increased a little bit more. So I like the idea of going to Murray. Definitely can get things done on the ground as well as in the air. He's got a lot of talent. I definitely would prefer going to him over Wentz. The other thing that we have seen though with a lot of Yahoo, I was talking about it a couple shows back with I think it was Petey, and he was pointing out about the superstar spot on Yahoo being a pretty strong history trend-wise of running backs doing well in that spot. So just with that factoid in mind, I think it's probably going to be super chalky to put either one of these guys in that spot. But maybe if that's valid, then we could take the Jonathan Taylor play off the top of the board there. And I just think it's kind of interesting to go that route and see where we end up and see if we can build a differentiated lineup with Taylor in the superstar spot. So I'm going to take us that route, and we'll see where we go.
All right. Well, let's put in Kyler Murray just as a default because they both have to be in your lineups. It's going to be very, very difficult to make up those kind of raw points if you don't have them because you'd have to hit on two people that are in the low to mid teens there, and I don't know that would be possible tonight. But I'm thinking we should probably put in Carson Wentz as well. I'd like to capture everything here for us. The nice thing is, Terry, I'm gonna put my thumb on the scale here, but Antoine Wesley is just $10. So he was someone that was quite interesting, even with Rondale Moore being active. Last week he did get 8 targets. Of course, DeAndre Hopkins was out last week. He is on the injured reserve. He could potentially make it back for the NFC Championship if Arizona makes it that far, but he may not even be ready by then. So what we see is what we get. So Christian Kirk has really taken a huge step forward these last half dozen games. We've seen AJ Green continue to build up a rapport with Kyler Murray, who missed what was about a month or so there with his, I think it was I can't remember, it was an ankle or a knee. And then we also have, I know some people in chat are asking about Andy Isabella. I believe Isabella is only, this is off memory, I think he's only played in like 3 games this year, and I want to say he has just 1 target. So I'm not really interested in him. I'd rather roll the dice here with Wesley. Isabella was someone that I really liked coming out his rookie year, had him on a last round pick on a ton of best ball teams, and then he did absolutely bubkiss, and the team seems to have moved away from him. So, which means he'll have 2 touchdowns tonight, right? But I think I'd rather look to someone like Wesley. But then we've got Zach Ertz as well, who also gets a whole host of targets here. The one thing we want to remember about Rondale Moore is he's not getting a lot of targets, and he wasn't really out there on a ton of snaps. When he was out there, he had a higher proportion of targets going to him than a lot of their receivers, but he's just not out there every play. So I don't think that has a gigantic impact, not nearly as much as James Conner anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that makes sense. And just looking at the lineup construction that you put together with those picks going with Taylor and then both quarterbacks, it's super expensive. Mm-hmm. But based on everything that you were just saying, especially with Wesley being at $10, but there's a bunch of guys that are in playable range. That leaves us with $14 per position across 2 positions. So we've got plenty of room on this lineup build. You can get Nyheim Hines for $13. You can get Edmonds for $13. You can get T.Y. Hilton for $12. You can get either of the Indy tight ends for $10. So there, you can plug in basically still a lot of different skill players here. So that means to me, right, if I'm mathing that out right, like I can put AJ Green in this lineup for $18 and leave us with $11 to spend. There is no $11 player. So maybe instead of going to AJ at 18, does it make sense? Probably the Colts D at 17. So that doesn't make sense. I wanted to get another premium player in here.
So the one, it's really going to not be possible. You can go, we're either picking between Green and Kirk basically, or going with Chase Edmonds and then like a T.Y. Hilton. That would be, and if we go with Green or Kirk, from there you can take Jack Doyle, you can take Ashton Doolin, you can take who's the guy I was just talking about, Antoine Wesley. Benjamin's floating around there. I'm not interested in him at all tonight. Even though he may get a couple carries, he hasn't done a whole lot. On the season, he has 25 rushing attempts for 84 yards, 1 touchdown. He has, over his last 5 games, it's where he's gotten all of his carries over the last 5 weeks, it looks like. And he did not play in the last 2 games. So 2, 6, 6, 9, 2, just looking quickly there at the Yahoo game log. That's from December 5th going backwards. So not a lot to see from him, 3 total targets. So I don't really like him. I would lean towards a Wesley and then probably Green, because I think Kirk will get more attention, or I would say, or you could even talk me into Green and a Jack Doyle, if we wanted to go maybe do a little bit of touchdown hunting there in the hopes that since we already have Wentz on our roster. The thing we want to know about the Indianapolis tight ends is while it has been Jack Doyle recently, and by recently, I mean only over the last 3 or 4 games, has a handful of targets more than Mo Alley-Cox. Mo Alley-Cox was actually ahead of Doyle at the beginning of the season. That seems to have just flipped a little bit, but it's truly a close your eyes and pick one, and then you'll find out after the game you probably should have picked the other one. So
that's how it's gone every week I've ever tried to decide between these two tight ends. I think that's how it's gone for me. But Matt Savoca did a pretty good job breaking down some of the quality of opportunity numbers between those two on the show that we did earlier today. And I can't for the life of me cite what he actually said because I was up till all hours of the night waiting for Santa Claus last night. And I'm just a little bit out of it and not able to recall exactly what the numbers were. But he made a pretty good case for Doyle in that situation. You can go either direction. It's totally fine. Pick your favorite, and then ownership across the different sites was essentially the same. I agree with what you're saying, though, on AJ Green over Christian Kirk. I think particularly when they're at the same price like we get them here, we were seeing AJ Green trailing Christian Kirk on the other sites by 2-1, 3-1 in ownership projections. So I think if they come in at the exact same price here, that's going to get even a more slanted situation where people will just go to Christian Kirk over and over again here. I like the idea of going and grabbing Green, and then I like going to Wesley instead of one of the Indy tight ends here, because what it does, it sets up a lineup now that we've built where we're taking the two top probable scorers from the Indy side, putting them together. It's the quarterback in the flex position, so we don't really care about the correlation with the quarterback, and we're hoping that Taylor gets his TDs. And then we're taking two direct correlations with Kyler Murray, who we've also got in that lineup in the flex spot. So it kind of favors toward like an even scoring game, a competitive game, which by all accounts on the Vegas board, and they haven't exactly drilled it through this season. We just saw that in the Packers game. But it's something to go by. It's a tight point spread. So I think it plays toward a level kind of a construction like this. So I kind of like that lineup. So that's the direction I would take those last two picks, go with AJ Green and Antoine Wesley there. But again, there are just so many different options for putting this thing together with the prices the way they are now after those changes. So definitely an interesting slate for Yahoo. And I actually kind of like this lineup that we built. So I'm going to click submit. Do you think that one will get duped more than 20 times?
You're in the same contest with me. We know it'll be matched at least once. I highly recommend going in that $15 contest, single entry. They'll match your, they'll give you $15 in site credit. So basically you're playing $15 today and you get $15 to play again tomorrow. So that's worthwhile. Now that you know what Terry and I are playing, maybe you want to flip one of those guys. Perhaps you guys go with Murray at captain, and we'll go then put Taylor there down into the flex, or I guess the superstar over there.
That's actually something that's worth mentioning. I'm curious how you do it. When you build a lineup like this, it's a relatively solid lineup. We've got the chalkiest guy probably in Jonathan Taylor in the superstar spot. Do you take the time to say, all right, let me build two more, put Kyler in one, move Taylor down into the flex? Because you can enter this same lineup, this same combination of players in the different combinations, where on a site like DraftKings, the multiplier makes that not necessarily possible. That's something on FanDuel and Yahoo that I'll tend to do if it's a lineup that I think by doing something like that, I can get to some differentiated looks at similar plays. Do you take a lineup and put in variants of that same lineup?
If I have the time, I think it's savvy. For example, earlier today, I had one lineup going in basketball over there. I split it into two after some of the news, and I intentionally made them like a 3v3. And one of them, I'm leaving several dollars on the table. That just is how it worked out for what I was doing. It wasn't totally what most people would call optimal, but it should at least be somewhat unique. So that was completely intentional. So I would say yes, if I have the time, I would absolutely do that. But between us being on shows for half of these, it gets a little tricky, and playing multiple sites and all that fun stuff here.
Yeah, for sure. And that's actually one of the times I do tend to do it is when we're talking through some of these and we're on with Nick and he takes one, I can say, all right, let me move this guy here and move that guy there real quick on this one and, jam in a couple more Yahoo ones, but we'll just play this single bullet tonight and see where we go.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting way to do it. And so like to push that decision thinking or that decision point over to what I'm looking at here for basketball is I'm down to my center spot. So I'm looking, so Nick Claxton is starting, Blake Griffin is off the bench, and then you've got Dwight Howard. Those are the three centers I can play. And I'm going to be leaving, if I move off of Claxton, I'm going to be leaving like $7 on the table, or I could go with Hassan Whiteside. So I'm going to end up with Claxton now that he's starting. I was going to stay with Claxton even if he was coming off the bench because I thought more people would go to Blake Griffin. But that's the kind of thought process we're looking at here. And that game started, but I still have the limited choices, much like we do on these single game slates. But that's the process that you want to think of in these situations. Shall we go build one over here on FanDuel, the blue site?
Blue site sounds like a plan to me. Let me jump over to the tools here and pull up our NFL Showdown lineup builder. I love these little point and click lineup builders. More and more, I find myself going to the lineup builder just to mess around with the lineup. Like a lot of the time, that would be part of my process during the afternoon. I'll pick up my phone and do it by hand on my phone and just try and land on as close to the optimal as I can hand build just off the top of my head. Then I go in, compare it to our boom bust tool, things like that, make adjustments, see where I missed, see where I hit. And that's the lineup tool is very good for that as well. And you get all that information right here on the same screen. So you can kind of make more informed choices as you're doing that. So I kind of like this tool more and more as we've been using it a lot more.
All right. I did see we got a super chat in there. So let me go back and get that window back up. Come on, too many windows, too many platforms.
I got it right in front of me.
It's a Twisted Reality Gaming. He says, Wesley had 8 targets in the last game. We think the Cardinals are playing from behind again. We may want to consider fading Edmonds tonight. Edmonds is a capable pass catcher. I suspect he'll be out there on at least 70% of the plays. It's Eno Benjamin after him, as best I can tell. And that's not enough to keep me away from him from that standpoint. So yeah, that would be.
Do you necessarily assume that the Cardinals are going to be playing from behind?
No.
Yeah, I don't. I honestly think they're going to be probably playing from ahead. So I see that situation a little bit reversed. But to pick up the point, Chase Edmonds is a guy that I actually liked his involvement in the passing game. When Connor started coming on, that was the thing that was keeping him relevant in some slates. You could take, all right, well, Edmonds dropped in price. He's still going to get 4 or 5 looks. Let me throw him into a lineup that was still viable. So he's a guy who through the first 8 weeks of the season, it's not giving me the average. He was, let's call the average about 5.5, something around there over the course of those first 8 weeks. He gets looks in the passing game when he's on the field. So I think he's going to be relevant in pretty much any game script. And like you said, he's just going to be on the field for a ton of snaps. So I'm fine with sticking with him.
All right. Sam Schaefer says, I got an EMAC for President mug for Christmas. Very nice. I need to get off my duff and get some of those for myself. It says, added the taste of takedowns to my coffee. Keep up the great work. Thank you. We appreciate that. And then another one here from Twisted Reality Gaming would like to ask about a Yahoo. Was it Yahoo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? No, it's DK. So we'll save that until we get there.
Well, he said MVP, so that looks like FanDuel.
Oh, but it's got 6 players.
2, 3, 4, 5. I count 5. MVP, JT, Kyler Murray, Ertz, Wesley, Green. Jonathan Taylor, Kyler Murray, Ertz, Wesley, and Green. Did you read MVP and JT as 2 different people?
JT, Kyler Murray. There's my 2. Got it.
I knew there was something there.
All right. Yeah, it's been a long day. A long day. So guess what? That was almost the lineup I just built by clicking things in. So let's talk through that one over here on the Dueling Fans. You get to take the first pick here, Terry. I assume we're leaning towards Jonathan Taylor. Or are you going to flip it on us? Kyler Murray does have that rushing upside. Touchdown-wise, anyway. Touchdown-wise.
Yeah, and that's the consideration, right? For me, again, on FanDuel, without the salary multiplier, I just kind of want a straight line on, especially if I'm only building one. I'm happy to just kind of straight line on the most probable top scorers in that MVP spot. It kind of makes sense. So if we're looking at our FanDuel board by a pretty wide margin, 7 and change percentage points, Jonathan Taylor does lead in the top scorer percentage. But if we look at the captain optimal, it's Kyler Murray by a little bit less than 4 percentage points. And you're getting him at a 18% ownership rate. So it's slightly positive leverage. So I'm going to take the Kyler Murray play off the top here, and we'll plug him into the MVP spot on the FanDuel slate.
Okay, I am comfortable with that. So from Kyler Murray, you know what? Let's have a little fun with this one. Let's go with Let's go with Ertz.
I like it. And we're including 2 players, although in different spots than Twisted Reality you just asked us about. So yes. I have absolutely no issues going with this same configuration and these same first 2 choices. And I imagine Taylor will wind his way into this lineup in a flex position in a moment. But I have no issues with going with JT over Kyler Murray in that lineup that he built there. I do think that might be a lineup that gets duped quite a bit, just because you're going to the 3 primary receivers that everybody's kind of looking at. You're leaving Kirk off on the table, which is good, but we are still going to 3, fairly concentrated weapons there. So maybe there's one other decision. I can't say for sure what it would be, but it might be around Wesley. Maybe we go to like an Indy tight end there instead of Wesley, something like that. Go with Ertz and Green, or make the other decision and lop Green off of there. I think it would be aggressive to take Ertz out. He is a premium option tonight on basically all slates. But just taking a look at the board here on FanDuel, let's sort by utility optimal now. And we see Zach Ertz, 4th most frequently optimal player in the util spot, and still coming up positively leveraged. So I like the Ertz call there. I would stick with him. I would make my change around one of the 2 wide receivers if I was to change it. If you don't mind being duped and sharing the prize pool, I think that's a good lineup. So I have no issues with the construction there.
So who was your other one?
Oh, I haven't actually made my pick.
Okay.
Just answering back to Twisted Reality and kind of
gotcha.
through that lineup as compares to the choices that we just made, because we took the
agreed
2 of the players with Ertz and with Kyler Murray that he's got there. And then let's see, this leaves us 11 grand average across 3 positions. So if we go to Jonathan Taylor now, that leaves us the 77.50 average. There's nothing wrong with that here, but is there a viable lineup to build without Jonathan Taylor? Let's say they prevent Jonathan Taylor from getting in the end zone, and he only has like an 80, 85 yard night, something like that, doesn't get to 100 yards, doesn't get in the end zone. To me, that spells like a passing game viable option for the Colts if we agree that the Colts might be playing from behind tonight. And even if it's just a competitive situation, I kind of like the idea of getting the other quarterback into the flex role here and just booking some scoring. So I'm going to take Carson Wentz and I'm going to plug him in, and I think that locks us off to Jonathan Taylor. And I just wanted to make a different decision so we didn't talk about that exact same lineup that we just kind of talked through.
All right, so putting in Wentz there, that gets us $9,500 a piece. I'm going to go down here. We've got the $8,500 Chase Edmonds. You've got AJ Green at 9. You've got the Money Badger at 9. You've got Prater at 95. Wesley's down there at 65. I'm thinking, let's go with Chase Edmonds. And then we can also, that gives us 10,500. That means we're going to leave money on the table. And I feel more comfortable with that because I think some gamers may go away and say, oh, I'm going to go Edmonds. Oh, he's the starter. I'm going to upgrade Ertz into something else. And they're going to land on what is a somewhat more common lineup here. We're just looking for raw points. So I would think, an AJ Green or a T.Y. Hilton are not bad. If you wanted to play for the, hey, maybe some in-game injury befalls Jonathan Taylor, would it be Nyheim Hines? If we put in Nyheim Hines instead, we'd have 11-5. We could put in Pittman, and all of a sudden we're looking at a Wentz, Pittman, Hines going against Ertz and Murray. So there's a lot of ways you can take these last 2 picks here by not going with Taylor. Amongst those sort of options there, which do you prefer? Do you want to look at like a Christian Kirk, and then we can finish it off with a Wesley and leave money on the table? We can do the same thing with AJ Green and then go over to the other side and pick somebody from Indianapolis. How would you want to play? What story do you want to tell specifically, since we do not have Taylor in this lineup?
So I think we get different by not including Taylor, but I don't know if we're different enough because we do have 4 of the top 8 players in terms of the flex ownership in this lineup, plus Kyler Murray in the captain spot is 18% owned. So we get a little bit of leverage there. I kind of want to make a differentiator decision here with this last spot and try and, thinking through like a big tournament field. You don't have to do this if you're playing in a small tournament. You certainly don't want to necessarily, not that you don't want to, but this might not be your first top of the board entry in like a single entry or a 3 max or something like that. But for large field entries, I think it would be important to try and differentiate this spot a little bit and look to a guy who's a little bit less, just totally raw ownership, less owned. If you can get positive leverage out of it compared to his probability of being an optimal play in the util spot, so much the better. I think that makes it even stronger, but I just want to get to a lower ownership mark. So I think Nyheim Hines is definitely interesting from that perspective. 13.3% ownership projection, 7,500 certainly leaves a ton of money on the table, which is another differentiating factor that we get here. I think either Nyheim Hines or T.Y. Hilton is interesting from that regard. Michael Pittman, definitely the most likely of those guys to put up a big score, but also the guy who's most likely to be in somebody else's lineup in the public, and then that requires us to make a change from what we've done. The other piece that was interesting in just a low ownership, and if you're telling the story of maybe a game that's a little bit hard fought, a game that the superstar on the board doesn't get into the end zone, a game where we're taking the tight end and the running back from the Arizona side with the quarterback and not necessarily focusing in like laser focus on the passing game. So maybe we're looking into a lower scoring, tightly contested game. And maybe to me, if that happens to be the case, the kicker on the Arizona side of things is only at an 18.7 total flex ownership board. Not too bad there. It's negative leverage at negative 1.4, 16% optimal in the util spot. I don't hate taking the kicker. So I think those would be the three differentiator type plays that I'd be looking at to varying degrees in this last spot. And I'd probably create a rotation of those and just go with either Nyheim Hines, T.Y. Hilton, or Matt Prater there. You could definitely go with like a Andy Isabella, Antoine Wesley, even a Greg Dortch is apparently on this team, 5,000s. Just noticed him there. I didn't see him on our, oh, there he is. Greg Dortch, a 0.1 probability of being in the top 2 to 5. So maybe you don't need to go that far. But those other options I do think have varying quality in that last spot.
Let's see. We've got a lot of fun going on here. Sadly, 32 seconds left. Fair amount of overlay there on the old Yahoo, but that was for NBA. Got to close that off. But I see that longtime viewer Antoine Murphy is saying, don't get cute, don't fade Taylor, you can get different elsewhere. Well, yes, you can, but he's going to be one of the 3 most popular players. And what we're doing here is more of a thought exercise than anything else. We've also had success on several of the lineups that we've built on our Sunday night shows where we've said, no Tom Brady on this one, or no, I think we even had the right night that Lamar Jackson just had an incredibly poor night and we didn't have him in our lineup and we had somebody else who got hurt. We cashed it one time in one of our lineups where we left out a key player and then had someone who didn't play. That was the Taysom Hill night. And I forget if we left off whoever was the other popular person of that game, we left them off and ended up cashing that night. So it's to think through these things, and everybody looks at the players at the top of those leaderboards are like, why did they do that, or why didn't they do that? Well, this is how you think through this. This is why you got to watch these shows. I love watching Neil Orfield on the shows as he goes through on how he thinks through this stuff as well, and he's breaking a lot of the normal conventions that are out there, like, split up your running backs and don't have more than one tight end from each team, and don't do this and don't do that. And it's like, well, he's got a milli maker on this, and he's gotten $200,000 wins already this season on Showdown slate. So
might know a thing or two about what he's talking about, right?
Yeah. We're looking to zig when everybody else is zagging, and that's the key thing. And this is one of those where if you're not fully comfortable with what it is, then play in the 3-mans. Hey, I'm going to drop some DK head-to-heads here for everybody.
Yeah. And like you're saying, it's what we're doing here is a thought exercise. We're taking people through how you think about these different combinations, how you can put together a differentiated lineup. And a lot of the time I'll start out on thinking I'm going to plug one guy in. And as I'm talking about it, I realize there might be a better move. So it's just, for me, it's how I think through these things. So it's just, kind of putting the actual thought process in real time onto the screen here, and hopefully people pick up value in learning how to, or hearing us do it. I don't want to say learning and imply that I, know more, but hopefully people pick things up from how we do that. Nobody is saying Jonathan Taylor is not a good play. Nobody is saying Jonathan Taylor is not the most likely guy to be the top scorer on the board. We've got him at a 34.7% chance of being the top scorer on the board. The next highest guy is Kyler Murray at 27.9. It's just about putting those combinations together. And if you want to, especially if you're building 150 lineups, and especially if those are going into a large field entry, everybody and their brother, people who've never played DFS before today, are going to put Jonathan Taylor in their lineup as their first click probably. So it's just about, hey, if we don't do this, what can we do? Is it viable to make that decision? Is it even a competitive lineup that we're building? And are we differentiated enough even through doing that, which you saw in the end of that lineup? I didn't necessarily think we were. So it's not just about saying like, grab this guy and we're not going to play that guy. There's always a reason for why we're, looking at these different angles.
All right, we've got 13 minutes left, so let's quickly do a DK1. Hit that like button. I've been light on the reads here. Promo code Frosty gets you a $1 Awesemo NBA Express package. That ends at midnight tonight. But give us some likes here. Have a trade-off, because we're going to talk about No House Advantage in just a minute. But I've dropped in $1 head-to-heads there on DK, and I haven't even made my lineups yet. I haven't even crunched. So let's see what happens. I don't even have a placeholder lineup in right now. So we're skating on the edge here.
I think you get a little something out of the pressure and like, a little adrenaline rush, something. You love leaving those hanging for the last minute. I'm usually crunching for like an hour before the show while we're doing things. And then inevitably I end up running one in the last few minutes, just like you do. And those are the ones that go in. But man, that's, I don't know, playing with fire there.
All right. So let's talk a little DK here. DK? Who are you thinking up at the tippy top? We've got some options, some choices. You've got Jonathan Taylor. You've got Kyler Murray. I think it's going to be one of those two. I really think it should be Kyler Murray at this point. But if we put in Chase Edmonds, we can play everybody that we want. If we go with Chase Edmonds, you can go with Edmonds, Taylor, Murray, Wentz, Ertz, and then you got 4,500 left. You can go with Prater if you want. You can go with I think that's going to be one of the most popular builds out there. What would you like to do on this? And there, I got my placeholder lineup, so I got a placeholder lineup now. That was quick.
So if anybody who's tuned into our various Showdown slates or read my Showdown articles through the season knows that I've been going through DraftKings histories of these Showdown contests, kind of tracking what the optimal lineups, what the winning lineups included. And as we've gone through that, by far, everybody's heard me say it, the strongest trend has been quarterbacks, because of the salary multiplier, do not play as well on DraftKings in the captain spot. So to me, I want to get to a skill player in the captain more often than not. And I always want to have a quarterback in a flex spot if I'm not using them in the captain. They are very frequently in the winning lineup. It's just because of the salary multiplier, they're not frequently in the captain spot. And it's a significant trend. It's not something that's just a couple lineups here, a couple lineups there, and make something up to talk about. This is a strong trend. So to me, it's taking a skill player there. You look at Jonathan Taylor in our numbers, 16.6% optimal in the captain spot. Second to Kyler Murray, who I do believe in our numbers, 17.5% and positively leveraged. But I kind of want to get to a skill player. I don't know that I want to go to Taylor here. I do want to get him in this lineup, but negative 5.4 leverage, the worst negative leverage in the captain spot, 22% owned. You can get immediately different by taking any other skill player off the board. You mentioned Chase Edmonds, only less than 10% ownership for $3,000 as a base salary. So 4,500 in that captain spot as a multiplier. That's very interesting to me. 8.1% optimal. So you're taking about half the optimal lineup rate, but you're also getting a third of the ownership there. So that kind of offsets one another. It's still slightly negatively leveraged at a negative 0.7. The guy who kind of stands out just below that, very similar type of a play, but he's 8,000 base price, so you're paying full freight for him, is Zach Ertz in the captain spot. I think he's going to be super involved in the passing game. I think he's got upside for touchdowns. We've got him as 8% optimal, and all of these skill players are between, outside of Taylor, 9% for Pittman at the top, and then you scroll down, you get to like AJ Green at 3.3. So there's not a huge range. But I think the upside on Ertz at positive leverage, 8% optimal, 6.8% ownership in the captain spot. I think it's just an interesting, unique way to get different out of the gate here. And I'm kind of curious to see what it does in this lineup.
I'm sold. I'm in. Let's do Ertz and does it concern you that Jonathan Taylor has really not been targeted the last couple of games?
I think there's so much opportunity for him on the ground that it doesn't really concern me.
Yeah.
You see Nyheim Hines will get a couple of those looks. We were talking about on the early show. There's even been a couple goal line carries. There's certainly the potential for Taylor to get poached. And that's another reason to consider some lineups that don't include him, because he could have one of those nights where even if they shut him down to 85 yards, but no touchdown, that's going to put a big ding into a lineup, into a potential to win if you've got him as the captain, as the most chalky possible captain on the board, and he kind of goes pop. You're just riding that ship down to the bottom with everybody else. So it's not a concern for me, but I think there's definitely, it just reinforces the idea that he's not an absolute guarantee.
Let's go with Kyler then to pair with Zach Ertz there.
That's exactly where I would have gone with that. I think that's the correct decision there. And then let's see if we do that. Can we do this? Yeah, of course we can.
Yeah, we'll do a little rapid here because we got just 7 minutes left, and I do want to talk about some other stuff to see if we can get some questions in there.
And I promised everybody, so that we don't piss off Chad, I promised everybody while I was just rattling off some of those plays that I would want to include Jonathan Taylor here. So I'm going to plug him in. That's 12 grand. That leaves us 48.66 across 3 positions to spend. And I think we can do it.
All right. You know what? Let's go with Wesley, who is 1,000. And let's say we cannot put in Chase Edmonds.
Okay. I was going to do the thing that you mentioned that Neil brings up a lot and differentiate us dramatically by taking Nyheim Hines as well here. So we're going to go double running back from the Colts side of the ball. And that leaves us with 9 grand to spend in this last spot. So we can have anybody.
All right.
Except
wow. Terry. All I can say is, wow. Nyheim Hines. So we've got, we're going to go with Kirk. We're going to zero ourselves out. I don't care because we're different enough. So Ertz, Murray, Taylor, Wesley, Hines, and Kirk. Let's lock that one in. I am going to download my crunch here. Well, first I'm going to put those over there.
What we're doing there is, I think we're building a very differentiated lineup. It's not to say that nobody could come up with this lineup and we're anything like that, but I think it's certainly not going to be duped more than 4 or 5 times, or everybody who's watching this show may throw it in. I think that's an effective lineup. I think that's a lineup that could win a tournament. I really do. And those are guys that are owned. Those are guys that are relevant. It's just an interesting way to put them together, and they fit in nicely. So I really like that lineup we just built.
All right, we got 6 minutes left. I'm going to do the No House Advantage read in 1 second here. Do you want to see if there's any questions sitting there in chat? And I'm going to upload this.
Yeah, I can do that. Let's see. Edmonds not a bad play, but there's more upside in GPPs with maybe Colts wide receivers. Yeah, I don't disagree with the upside and maybe the sneakiness of some of those Colts wideouts. We saw the ownership was fairly low across some of the sites throughout the day. So I agree with whoever just said that. Sterling says he'd pivot off of Wesley before he pivot off of Edmonds. Based on ownership, could be the case. Let's see. Is Benjamin a good play? Not
no.
Really, no. Yeah, I wouldn't really include him in very much of anything here. I'll take a look at our board, see where he's at. On the DraftKings slate, he's a 0.2% optimal play in the flex spot, and he's owned 8.3% of the time. So he's actually one of the most negatively leveraged plays on the board at negative 8.1. So even with that $200 salary, it's just not going to be happening all that frequently. I think you would need a whole hell of a lot of happenstance for that one to come through. Let's see.
All right. Baldy in the off says, any Isabella love? No. And then I see someone who was saying, can you play a lineup on FanDuel without Taylor? Why, yes. You can. We spent 10 minutes building one and talking through it. But you know what we're going to talk through now real quick? We're going to talk through No House Advantage. They are the sponsor of tonight's show. They are bringing you a different way to enjoy DFS with player prop contests. It is peer-to-peer. That means it's going to level the playing field. You're not going against the house. Therefore, there is no house advantage. Generally, they are offering up to 500 different player props in their contest. They do have full NFL contests tomorrow, as well as NBA. They did not do any single game stuff tonight because they weren't sure people would make their way over to their site, which is rather savvy because they know we've seen the overlay across a bunch of other sites. So they are loading their contest up for tomorrow. How it works is you choose 10, usually 10 questions is what it is in the NFL. It's confidence levels. 10 is your most likely, 1 is your least likely to happen. Their props or player questions are static. That means they don't move. Somebody's hurt, they don't change. You play a player who's hurt, you get a 0 for that. But you play a player who's hurt, their stats don't change. Guess what? Their teammates don't either. So you can go and double, like tonight, say the example would be Connor's out. Edmonds' line was 38 rushing yards on most of the other sites. You're probably going to want the over because he's probably going to get closer to 50 or 60. So that would be one to take advantage of. Wow, that sounds awfully complicated, EMAC. But wait, there's more, as they like to say. You can go over to the Awesemo projection pages, go over to NFL on the awesemo.com, scroll down, see No House Advantage, free projections, same thing for NBA. Not only do we give you the projections that come straight out of Alex's model answering their questions, we then go build out 400 or so optimal lineups for you. I can download that, upload it, maybe pick one not off the top 3 or 4, because that's what some people do. But if you find the number 69 out there, maybe the number 420, you can jump on in there and get those, load those in there. We do all the heavy lifting for you, and there's overlay there almost every day of the week. This is something you're going to want to check out. All new users get a $25 deposit bonus match with the promo code Awesemo. That money comes out of your account first and into their contests. Pretty sweet deal there. So check them out. They're kicking off at 1 o'clock tomorrow with their NFL contests. A lot of fun. Pro tip, take some of the overs on interceptions. Half an interception. You can go over to the Awesemo, you'll see it spit out and it'll tell you exactly who it should be. But generally, some of the worst quarterbacks have 60, 70. We've seen occasionally even high as an 80% chance for an interception. Hey, that seems like good odds. And a lot of people don't get to that one because why? They're boring. Who wants to root for interceptions? I do if it's going to win me money.
You've been the pick whisperer lately. You've nailed 3 or 4 of those in several shows we've done over the recent weeks. So yeah, I'm actually intrigued if you've got one in mind that you might be targeting.
I can look that up real quick. I see upload your lineups. It's 1 minute till lock. If you haven't, I see Nick is in the chat. He can't quit us. There he is, Terry. He's watching. Hey, Nick, we miss you.
I gotta say, buddy, that Zach Ertz tight end pick in the captain spot was a little bit for you too, pal. That's can't have one of these showdown shows without picking a tight end.
We got to stay on brand here. So I'm going to quickly go look at the Awesemo NFL DFS projected stats, which we have because that's what builds out our DFS stats. I'm going to look at interceptions, and I would say, this hasn't been updated yet because Mike Glennon hasn't. I don't know if he was officially named or not. I've saw unconfirmed that it's going to be Jake Fromm, but let's put it this way: Mike Glennon has a 1.2 interception projected for tomorrow. That would be like 100% chance of getting an interception. I'm going to guess Jake Fromm's is higher. So I would look for that one. I would look for Zach Wilson, Drew Lock as well. And then Tim Boyle will be playing quarterback for the Detroit Lions. And then Ian somebody is playing for New Orleans. Ian Book.
That's what I was going to throw. Yeah. Who the hell?
Now, those aren't
on the board and you say, who? You can
those guys aren't all going to be on No House Advantage or the other prop sites, etc., or even using Odd Shopper, the Awesemo sister site, to find those. But there's a lot of opportunity for interceptions tomorrow because we know Trevor Lawrence is going to be out there. We know Davis Mills is going to be out there. Heck, we know Cam Newton's probably going to be out there as well. Those would be the
bad quarterbacks playing tomorrow than there are good.
Well, I was going to fish and say, can you name how many good quarterbacks are playing?
Exactly. Thin list. And a couple of those, like Brady's playing shorthanded in terms of the skill players. Like dicey.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's going to do it here for the Christmas show. Come on, hit the like button on the way out. Get us to 100. Terry and I gave up some time here from Christmas here to do this show for you guys. Heck, Terry did 2 shows, but we're starting off tomorrow, 8:30 in the morning, 4.5 hours leading up to the NFL 1 o'clock kickoff. We've got a full slate of NBA, knocking on wood. We'll have to see what happens there. I'll be posting the Fred Van Elite Fan Club contest. No idea if Toronto's going to be playing tomorrow or not, but we'll find out. We live in a brave new world here. With that, gamers, you can follow Terry over on Twitter at DigitalB21. I am at EMACDFS. And of course, it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, awesome, yo.